My name is John Lawford. I'm the Executive Director and General Counsel at the Public Interest Advocacy Center in Ottawa. We're a national nonprofit and we advocate for the consumer and public's interest in largely in regulated services and mostly those that are done, regulated, that is, by the federal government rather than provincial governments, although we do some work in some provincial areas like energy regulation. We've been pushing for quite a while to change the Telecommunications Act to be strangely more like the US Communications Act, because in that act, in the United States, they have a basic service obligation, which means that you have to provide telecommunication services to all Americans, despite their income status and their rural or urban living situation and any other factors. It's an actual legal obligation. And that means the United States has things like Lifeline program for lower income Americans to get access to the internet now, and cell phones. And previously it was just telephone, but now it's been expanded to these new communication systems. So we need a basic service obligation in Canada. We have a rather more indirect way of regulating the large telecommunications companies in Canada. It's more like a basic service objective, which is actually the CRTC, that's the regulator in Canada. That's their speak for kind of a cobbling together of a bunch of public interest objectives in the act that are not so clear. And so without that legal hook, it's very hard to make the companies do things in the public interest that are against their private financial interests. That might mean, for example, building broadband connections in the north or free Wi-Fi in cities. They won't do that because that cuts into their private profit, but it's part of reaching all people with all communication systems at the most accessible, affordable price point possible. And we're just lacking that legal hook, if you will, for me to be able to go to CRTC and demand these things. There's some other ways around it as well. We've tried. We also need, for example, a subsidy for low income access. If you're going to leave it in private hands, then it will be priced too high for some members of the public. And that means a low income subsidy is absolutely essential, whether you live rural or whether you live in an urban situation. We've tried 2, 3, 4 times with CRTC various efforts, and we're trying again. And hopefully that will work this time. But without it, what it means is most people who are in the bottom quintile of income really have to either make a choice between other essentials like food or heat to afford their communication systems, and they really have to be strategic about using, public Wi-Fi and free services or workplace internet when they can, if they have a job, and libraries, and these sorts of places, which is very limiting and obviously difficult privacy wise for them. And lastly, I think we need to have a continuing subsidy for in particular for those rural internet connections and rural wireless. Again, if you leave it in private hands, the economics don't work. So it's one thing if the government gives them a bunch of money to build a broadband connection to small communities in, say, northern Quebec, but there's ongoing costs. Things break, freeze, and just need upkeep from their staff. And those ongoing costs aren't covered. So always over time, even if you build it, it will decay, and there will be no money to fix it, and it won't work. And then the cities will leapfrog the rural speeds and connectivity. So we need a continuing connection subsidy, and we used to do that for telephone. So it's not like it's a big imposition. All telecom users used to pay a certain small amount on their bill, which they probably didn't even see, to a national contribution fund, which used to lower the price of long distance and home phone service. And there's no reason why we can't do that for internet and wireless. So we need 2 subsidies and one underlying internet sorry, not internet, one underlying legal obligation to get internet and wireless for everybody. We try to focus on human beings over machines here, and where there is um, a technology, it should be looked at by sociologists and maybe philosophers even, and people that are just regular people too, to see what they use these items for or want to use them for, whether it's communications or anything else, and making sure that that kind of thought and those sorts of questions are asked to regular people about what you're really going to use it for, how it fits into making people more human, is really important, because we're getting kind of computerized and divided by our technology. So yeah, that relentless focus of people before things, and people before control systems, and giving folks a veto over technological advancements that, on balance, are not in their interests, would be interesting. I don't know how to do that. Um, we had a couple of privacy concerns over the past few years about use of children's data when they're under 18, and then they become adults, and their social media use continues to be in the hands of the social media companies. We proposed giving people a choice at 18 whether to allow the companies to continue to hold that data or to have to erase it completely. That's what I'm talking about. Um, so where there's an actual human absolute right to shape how you look digitally or how you connect with other people, I think that kind of right would be what would lead us to a more equitable or fair, or um, I don't even know how to put it, kind of future. 30 years again is a long way away, but if people keep that in mind, I think it would lead us down a better path than just letting it rip and seeing what happens.